Welcome to CTSB COVID-19 conversation updates. My name is Mitch Kruzna, and today we'd like to welcome back Michael Knybel, the principal of Lenox Memorial Middle and High School. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, Mitch. It's good to be back. Not necessarily good under these circumstances.
Yes, agreed. Let's go back to the beginning of the school year in September. What were the plans that were implemented for the students back in September?
So essentially, the administration of Lenox, with the superintendent, central office, and the principals, along with some teacher representation through the union and through our department heads, we worked on developing a plan for the fall, really in June, not expecting the concern to be as high because, again, none of us have experienced a pandemic on such a large scale. But as we approached September, we knew that we would have to have a plan really from the Department of Ed and Commissioner Riley from the state that we would have, school as normal or hybrid learning where we could social distance within our own building, or a plan for remote. So we wanted to make hybrid and remote quite similar so that we were able to flow between the two without confusing our schedule and without confusing the kids. So essentially we spent the last couple weeks of August all the way through September 14th tooling our teachers with a new platform to move our curriculum to the students on a web-based platform called Canvas, which was used pretty much throughout the college. Most colleges across the country were using that platform when they went remote. So essentially, our teachers had about 4 weeks of prep time to get out in front and move their curriculum from paper to this electronic platform. So September 14th began our remote education, and October 5th, we began our hybrid.
Okay. Now, how are the students adjusting? I'm sure the hybrid, what the hybrid is like, explain the hybrid learning.
Yes. So our hybrid learning is a form, it's a schedule that'll allow our students to basically form two cohorts. So we're able to split our student body 6 through 12, actually K through 12, into two cohorts, which would diminish our class size to be about half. So when we began our remote education in September, we had some parent meetings to discuss how we would move to hybrid, and every student would have the equal opportunity to have 1 hour of instruction per teacher, per class. And we have 8 periods here at Lenox, a week live in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And the other 2 meets during the week, because we went from having class 4 days a week to 3 days a week because we were using technology and we were concerned about the amount of screen time students had. So essentially our students were able to Zoom sort of on this venue into the classroom while the teachers taught live. So we had asynchronous and synchronous lessons, mainly synchronous in this building. We outfitted our teachers with cameras like I'm using here, and our students were paired up because basically Lenox is a one-to-one. Every student has the capability of having a laptop. So we asked our students when they came to school to bring their laptops, and that way they could pair up with students from their class that were at home. We use the alphabet to split our campus in two. So the first half of the alphabet comes in the morning, and the second half of the alphabet comes in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. We are, I believe, one of the only schools in Berkshire County. Pittsfield had the same kind of plan to try to see every student every day. That way, you know, some of our other districts in Berkshire County are running their cohorts by day, so that one cohort comes Monday and Tuesday, and the other one comes Thursday, Friday. We felt it was important that our students were able to see a teacher or two every day. And we had split the day in half with 2 bus routes, you know, two runs of busing a day. We also were able to disinfect the building in the middle of the day. So kids would come for 2 periods in the morning and then go home. We would disinfect the building. Teachers would have their lunch. We would have, you know, some meetings would take place in that middle of the day virtually. And then the second cohort would come in for the next 2 periods in the afternoon and then go home for the day.
Now, did you have to hire additional maintenance staff to meet the needs of the disinfecting?
So we did not hire additional maintenance, but we did extend hours and we adjusted some hours. So, okay. You know, for some of our guys that would come in at night, they come in earlier in the day and they leave earlier at night. What we were able to purchase, and we purchased with, you know, the CARES Act funding, was electrostatic sprayers that basically it looks like a fog, but it really is a spray. Mm-hmm. And through electrostatic technology, it kind of makes the disinfectant adhere to all the hard surfaces in the classrooms.
That's pretty interesting. That we're always adapting to meet the needs of the students and the staff, and it's important, and it's kind of reassuring too that you're taking all these extra steps to make it safe. Now, has there been any cases, COVID cases, with your staff or the students this early school year?
So we have learned through the health department that we've had students in close contact that would need to quarantine for 10 to 14 days. It's the protocols have been changing in the CDC, and I'm sure people at home have read about this in the newspaper. And we've also been notified of students that have had a positive test and would do the full quarantine and monitor their symptoms. Each day, as staff would enter the building, we actually took an extra step that they would log in by signing their health statement for the day that they did not have any symptoms. And the same thing, we asked our parents at home to check, but we also checked temperatures of students entering the building when we were in the hybrid and had the cohorts. We were able to have a station so that we were not only checking attendance of who's in the building, because as you can imagine, our database could not necessarily identify. There's a way to log cohorts, but there's no way to log attendance without marking the remote kids absent. So we were doing attendance by hand and having a sign-in table. We had a couple guidance counselors that would man a table and check kids in as they came every day. So as you can imagine, that sort of interfered with attendance in our hybrid situation. And before we opted to go remote again for the holidays, we were down to 43% attendance coming in live.
Mhm.
We are
Well,
averaging about 98% attendance daily.
uh, I guess what I'm going to ask is, um, now the students are tested positive, but they're still able to do remote learning and stuff if their symptoms aren't as as bad. Or
Correct. So ours, I mean, we actually had it's kind of sparks the flip side as well. We have some staff that have pre-existing conditions that they were advised by their medical practitioner that they should be teaching remote.
Mhm.
So one of the things that we worked on um, in the weeks of September into October was how to spread our staff out and give them their own space.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times we share classrooms. So right now we're using the gym, the cafeteria, the Duffin lobby for classrooms.
Mhm.
Um, but then we had a number of teachers that could not teach in person because of their high risk to complications if they were to contract the virus.
Mhm.
So those classes meet remotely full time, and we have a paraprofessional proctoring those classes in the gymnasium so that you could do multiple classrooms at the same time because all the kids were using headsets and their laptops as they were here in the school building. So the same thing, if a child could not attend school, and we had about, in the beginning, we had about 20% of our students were not going to attend live instruction. So they were working remotely full time, which is why we developed our schedule to be very similar if we're live in the hybrid situation or remote, because some kids were always remote and more kids moved that direction as the cases were reported in the Pittsfield area. As numbers rose, we saw more parents emailing us saying that they would like to keep their kids home, um, which is sort of wise. I think Lenox has really done a great job because we there hasn't been a single case that has been tracked back to the building as far as being spread in the building. Mainly that you heard about, you know, community gatherings
Mhm.
is really the source of spread.
Do you think that over the last few weeks, I've noticed a lot of out of town plates, people from out of town coming up here, especially from the down south. And do you think that that could be a spreader also?
We've had you know we've seen a number of students that have registered from out of state. They were either, you know, going to private schools or they had a summer home here and the family decided to stay here and sign into the school and register for us. I don't think it's part of the spread because I do believe in the protocols. I believe in if we wear masks. I believe if we wash our hands, if we're careful, because I think, you know, the chances of us coming into contact with COVID are high, but actually contracting the virus, it depends on our own behaviors. I think it's like any other illness that's airborne. It's just the precautions we take as individuals
Mhm.
will prevent it from spreading.
Mhm.
Um, you know, as we spent the summer working with the Department of Public Health, um, reading the guidelines from the CDC, reading the guidelines from the state Board of Education office, and in doing our own interpretation, I think we have stronger protocols in place than what's advised, and that has worked well for us.
Yeah, I agree. I feel too, people have to, you can't wear a mask halfway. You gotta put it up over your nose. I see a lot of people out in public wearing their masks like that, and it's just frustrating because we have to be diligent. We have to be careful still, and it's been months since it started, and but we have to not get lax over it. We have to be diligent, and so now your school sports. How are the school athletes dealing with these changes?
So our athletes, our coaches, I think our AD David Pugh and Brian Cogswell, the assistant principal. I mean, it's heartbreaking to have to make the tough choices and decide if it's safe to have a season or not. So the fall season was, I guess canceled. It's the only word to use, mainly because of the season would have been short. We had to think about transportation. Berkshire County in athletics were becoming into a new division by joining the Hampshire and Hamden County, along with Berkshire County, in the same division, divided up by school size. The decision was made early that Berkshire County would not travel to the Valley. So we looked at, with the 9 schools to try to put together a season. And I want to say that maybe 3 or 4 participated as schools, and all the others ended up going through the Park and Rec and the community center and having youth leagues. So even though Lenox Memorial Middle and High School did not have soccer, our teams played with the coaches under the youth leagues, which was sort of a decision that we would not send mixed messages to our students by having them in daily cohorts and then combining those cohorts in their activity here on campus. Whether that gave them a heightened sense of following protocol, it turned out to be what was a shortened season for them. Last night at the school committee, we brought up winter sports, particularly alpine skiing and Nordic skiing. Basketball is sort of impossible for us right now because the gymnasium has room for 70 instructional spaces. It has 4 teacher desks right on the floor. So the thought of us being able to do anything with basketball and it being an indoor semi-contact sport would not be as safe as can be. But we thought, let's really think about skiing. The school committee voted to not pursue a winter season. They did appease the students by letting them know to pursue the avenues through clubs. Mm-hmm. And then we will probably revisit it again January 4th. Our feeling is while we're remote, we would not have athletics, sort of like a snow day. If we have a snow day, we don't, and it clears up by 9, we don't come back in and have athletics in the evening. Mm-hmm. We're either on or off. So we would not be beginning until January 19th, which would be a pretty short season for skiing.
Okay. Now, there was a decision that the schools would go fully remote on November 30th. Can you explain the events that led up to that decision?
So we have a health advisory committee that meets with the superintendent and representatives from the Board of Health, Tri-Town Health, teachers, administrators all sit on this committee, and they look at the COVID numbers and the number of cases and the percent of spread each week. And as we were approaching Thanksgiving and we saw, the numbers beginning to rise, and our school nurse was concerned because we began hearing from parents that there was, travel. It was hard decision for any family to decide to either isolate and not see distant family during the holidays. Mm. So we did put out our travel protocol, and which would be if anyone were to leave the state and go to a high-risk area, they would have to quarantine before returning to school. Mm-hmm. And as we saw the number of students attending live decline, we began to think that maybe we could make it easy and we could go to a 2-week remote session, it's sort of easier for the teachers to do all one thing. Mm-hmm. and not try to be focused on the screen and focused to the students who are live in the classroom. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of energy. As you can imagine, it's sort of doing two things at once. Mm-hmm. And, so we were looking at, should we do 2 weeks off and then come back, and then following New Year's do 2 weeks off and come back. We began to think of the consistency and the momentum that's built up with having classes the same way over an extended period of time. And the decision was made that it's less confusing to stay remote for a longer period of time, and we can get the momentum, the rhythm, and our students engaged on a high level. And our data is beginning to show us that. Our quarter ended as we were remote. Right before we were remote, we had parent-teacher conferences that interrupted our schedule in the meantime. Those conferences were held over Zoom, but our attendance is still, we're running about 98% are attending remotely daily. On average, for 47-day averages, 97.78, which is really excellent for our students. Mm-hmm. So it says a lot of that tells us a lot about our remote instruction. It is robust and it is engaging.
That's really encouraging, because I was going to ask you, how are the students weathering all these changes, and if they're staying engaged and they're still interested in
So the 3% we're worried about, we actually have a building-based support team where we collect all the information from the classroom teachers about someone that might be falling behind or someone that might not be logging in. The Canvas platform gives us student logs so we can see how much time they're spending on the program and completing work. So the 3% of our students we're worried about, we actually have divided up the names amongst 5 or 6 guidance counselors, and Brian Cogswell will make some calls, and we call those students every morning, and we get them started, so to speak, with a personal phone call, encouraging them and asking how we can help them. Mm-hmm. We're supplying a lot of tutoring, and built into our schedule is an hour a day. We call office hours, but it's a way for students to connect with a teacher within a small group or individually. So we're fortunate that we have a couple really strong paraprofessionals that are tutoring for regular ed students, mm-hmm. On top of what our special educators are doing.
Okay. That sounds really encouraging. So are you planning to go back to your hybrid learning in the second week of January?
We are. We're hoping right after Martin Luther King Day, the Tuesday, the 19th of January, we would begin remote and see students live again.
Okay.
I feel that our protocols are strong, and the fact that basically we're greeting every student individually as they come in the building. We have staff throughout the hallways to monitor. We're small enough where it's a safe environment.
Okay. That's good, and it's great that your school is taking all these steps to ensure the safety. Now, how are your special needs students how are their needs being met in this situation?
So our severe needs students, they have the opportunity if their parents choose to return next week, which would be 2 weeks after the Thanksgiving break, and they have been coming in really in the middle section of the day, when as students leave, they come in just before the first cohort goes home at about 10 o'clock, and they stay till 1 o'clock, which is when our second cohort begins. And so that lessens their exposure to all the other kids. And they're a substantially separate program. For our special education students that are mainstreamed, we've had extra tutoring time. We've kept them for a full day when we were hybrid. So their teacher would give them an extra hour after the first cohort went home. And the special educator and the paras would work with those students. During the lunchtime, they would have lunch here, and then they would attend live instruction in the second cohort as well. And now while we are completely remote, they still have the opportunity to have that extra study time with their special education staff, while everyone else has a break or the office hours in the middle of the day.
Okay. Well, it's getting about that time where, it's encouraging news where, the school is definitely stepping up to meet the needs in these crazy times, and keep the morale up and keep moving forward and adapting to the situation. And, I'd like to thank you, Michael, for joining us today. Michael Knybel, the principal of Lenox Memorial Middle and High School. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for being here, and have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
All right.